Now what we're going to do is we're going to do the converse of graphing a piecewise function. We're given a piecewise function and we have to come up with the equation. So the first thing that we always want to do when we're looking at the two different equations or the two different lines is come up with a general formula. Then what we're going to do is we're going to fill in everything with that formula in order to figure out what the actual equation is. So let's take our first line. If we're looking at this one right here, what we notice is that it's a linear equation. So that means that it's going to follow y equals mx plus b. Notice that we have two linear equations. So both equations are going to be in slope-intercept form. That means once we know that, what we're going to do is we're going to write our two different equations. I'm going to start with this one first. What I notice is that it has a slope of 1/2. It goes up 1, it goes to the right 2. So that means that I have 1/2 x. Now what I need to do is find my y-intercept. Notice it's going in this pattern of 2, 1. So if we were to follow it, 2, 1, notice that it's going to cross at 1/2. So 1/2 x plus 1/2 would be our equation. Now what we're going to do is we're going to come up with the other equation. With this one right here, it's a little bit easier because we see the y-intercept. Our y-intercept is 0, and our slope, if you're looking at it, goes down 2 to the right 1. That means we have a slope of negative 2x. And the y-intercept 0, so we could put plus 0. I'm not going to do that. So this right here would be my two different equations. But I need a domain. So if you're looking at our first one, it starts at 1. Our second one also starts at 1. This one is an open circle going to the right. So I'm going to put a comma. X is greater than 1. This one right here is a closed circle. It's going to the left. So I'm going to put a comma. X is less than or equal to 1. And that right there is my piecewise function. Now, letter B is a little bit more complicated. We have a linear equation right here. So we know it's y equals mx plus b. And we have a quadratic equation. So this is going to be in the form y equals a x minus h squared plus a. So those are our two different formulas that we're going to be working with. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write those equations. I'm going to start with my linear equation. When I'm looking at this right here, I see that it has no slope. So the slope is 0. And my y-intercept is at 2. So that means that I have 2. Remember, g of x means y. Y equals 2. Now, when I write my other equation, I'm looking at this. I see that my a value is positive because it's going up. It is 1 away, so my a value is 1. The key is finding the vertex. In this case, the vertex is 2, negative 1. So that means when I plug it in, I have x minus 2 squared minus 1. Now what I'm going to do is come up with the domain. Notice it's in the same spot as the other ones. It's at 1. So for this one right here, it's an open circle going to the left. And this one right here is a closed circle going to the right. Now, if we're looking at letter C, the two different equations that we have, this one right here is a square root function. So that would be y equals a square root x minus h plus k. And then for this one right here, what we have is a quadratic. So once again, y equals a x minus h squared plus k. In both of these, the key is our hk value. For the first one, our starting point, our HK value is 0, 2. Notice that it goes up 1, so our A value is 1. So what we have is the square root of x. Notice that we don't have an h value because it's 0. And then we have plus 2. Now, if we're looking at our other equation, it's a parabola again. Notice it's going up. Notice that our a value is no longer 1. It's 2. So we have 2 parentheses. Our vertex right here is at -1 and -2. So that means that we have parentheses x plus 1 squared minus 2. Now what we're going to do is we're going to write our domain. So the domain, if you're looking at these, would be 0. So for the square root, it's going to the right. Notice it's closed. So x is greater than or equal to 0. And then for the other one, of course it's 0, but this time it's going to the left. So x is less than 0. And that right there would be our piecewise function.